Have you ever wondered what dark secrets lurk in the sewers beneath your feet? Let me tell you a story that will make you think twice before walking over a manhole cover on a rainy night. A story about how guilt can manifest in the most terrifying ways, and how the sins of the past always find their way to the surface, like black water seeping through the cracks in the pavement. In the streets of Gotham, where the rain never seems to cease and shadows take on a life of their own, there lives a man known as the Penguin, Oswald Oz Cobb, to those who once knew him as family. A man who built his criminal empire on the bones of his own brothers, quite literally. But this isn't a story about his rise to power, but rather about his descent into the depths of hell he created himself. It all began on a particularly damp October night, the kind of night where the air feels heavy and the streetlights seem to struggle against the darkness that surrounds them. Oswald was in his study, savoring an aged whiskey while contemplating his kingdom through the windows of his mansion. Success tasted sweet, as always, but that night, something changed. At first, it was barely perceptible, a whisper so faint it could have been the wind sneaking through the cracks in the windows. But there was something about that sound that made the hair on the back of his neck stand up. It was his name, pronounced in a way he hadn't heard in decades. Ozzy, little brother Ozzy. The Penguin tried to ignore it. He poured himself another whiskey, turned up the volume of the classical music playing in his study. But the whispers persisted, multiplying like echoes in a cave. Voices he knew too well. Voices he had silenced long ago in the depths of Gotham's sewers. The voices of his dead brothers began seeping through every drain, every crack, every pipe in his mansion. Why did you abandon us, Ozzy? Blood calls to blood. Come join us, brother. The waters are perfect. Each night, the manifestations grew more intense. The shadows in the hallways began to take familiar shapes, distorted silhouettes of his brothers, dripping black water that left no traces on the floor. Mirrors became windows to a nightmare world. Every time Oswald looked into one, he saw the putrid faces of his brothers behind him, smiling with mouths full of stagnant water and algae. His eyes, once full of confidence and cruelty, were now bloodshot from lack of sleep. The great Penguin, king of Gotham's criminal underworld, was beginning to crumble. His subordinates started noticing changes in his behavior. They found him talking to himself, yelling at walls, jumping at the slightest sound of running water. The Penguin, who had once been the epitome of composure and control, now resembled a cornered animal. One morning, after another sleepless night, he found a message written on his bathroom mirror. The letters, traced with a viscous substance that smelled of death and decay, read, "Time to come home, Ozzy. Your brothers are waiting in the depths." It was then that he knew he could no longer run. Armed with a flashlight and his signature umbrella weapon, the Penguin descended into the sewers that very night. The stench of putrefaction and death hit him like a physical slap. The black waters reached his ankles, and each step produced an echo that sounded like distant laughter. As he ventured deeper into the subterranean labyrinth, memories began to flood his mind. He remembered how he had abandoned his brothers in these sewers, and during his rise to power lived ignoring the death of those he once called brothers. The voices grew louder as he approached the place where it all began, an ancient drainage chamber where the waters swirled in an endless vortex. There, on the walls covered in moss and rot, he saw the marks his brothers had left in their final moments, trying to escape the death he had caused them. Suddenly, the waters began to violently churn. From the vortex emerged dark figures, bodies bloated and deformed by years underwater. His brothers, or what remained of them, surrounded him with impossible movements. Their mouths, filled with black water and worms, opened in macabre smiles. "Welcome home, little brother," they said in unison, their voices resonating like the echo of a flooded tomb. "You've been very busy up there, building your empire on our corpses. But now it's time for you to join the family forever." The Penguin tried to fight, but how do you fight against something that's already dead? The cold, putrid hands of his brothers grabbed him, dragging him toward the vortex. His screams were lost in the roar of the black waters, as his empire crumbled as quickly as it had been built. They say that on rainy nights, when Gotham's sewers overflow, you can still hear Oswald Cobb's screams mixed with his brother's laughter, a reminder that some sins are too heavy to float, and that sooner or later, we all must face the consequences of our actions. If this story has made your hair stand on end, don't forget to leave your like and share in the comments what other secrets you think Gotham's sewers hold. Subscribe to our channel to not miss more sinister stories like this one, where the most feared villains face horrors beyond their comprehension. Remember, in the depths of the city, where light never reaches, some stories are waiting to be told, and others are better left buried forever.